who can't attend live that they can follow along. And the first part of the somatic work that I want to do today is just to feel a sense of connection. And I think sometimes you have to be a little bit more intentional about doing that when we're here on Zoom. Sometimes it can feel like talking out into the ether. So even though I just gave you a spiel about not having to have your camera on, this is an opportunity, even just for a moment, no matter what you're doing, if people want to turn their cameras on, just so that we can see that there are a bunch of people here, that we're not just, yeah. Hi, Kate. Hi, Hannah. Hey, Maddie. And again, if you don't want to turn your camera on, that's no problem. You don't have to. This is just for a moment, and this is just so that we can do a practice together that's going to help to co-regulate, right? Co-regulate us, and just acknowledge that we're here in community. We're not doing this as individuals, that we are a social species. Um, so one of the things that I'm going to invite you to do is, those of us who have our cameras off or on, so that we can see each other, just pick one person to look at. They don't know that you're looking at them. Just take a minute, like scan the faces, see which face it is that you are drawn to. Again, you don't have to really understand why. Just be one face that pulls your attention. Just taking a minute to look at that person, and they might be someone you know, they might be someone you recognize, they might be a complete stranger, but just acknowledging that, wow, there's a whole world in there. And even the people who don't have their faces shown or who are watching the recording back, you can still participate in this. You can still pick that one face and look at it. Yeah, and connect to it. Then what I'm going to invite you to do is, whatever face it is that you're looking at, okay, we're just going to all start to sway from side to side. But I want you to, whatever face it is that you're looking at, I want you to try to sync up with them. So it might be a bit clunky at first, it might be a bit awkward. Yeah. And then just see if you can notice how that's feeling in your own system as you're moving in rhythm with that one person. And although some people's connections might be a little bit slower and might throw it off a little bit, generally, what we're doing now is, even though you're only connecting with one person, we're kind of all in rhythm, in tandem, moving together. And just see what kind of an impact that has on your own system, okay? Is it, right? There might be a little bit of panic at first, and then taking your camera off and then trying to match up your rhythm with somebody else's rhythm. Just notice there might be a bit of a soothing effect now, or maybe not. Just see if you can hold that in your awareness of, like, what am I noticing? What am I feeling in my body right now? Okay. And then you can just slowly settle, come to some stillness. And now, invitation, if you want, you can turn your cameras back off, or you can leave them on. It's up to you. This workshop that we're doing together, it's not about reflecting and setting goals. I see this as a little bit different to a goal planning workshop. We're actually going to do a part 2 on January 6th at the same time. And that is going to be a little bit more looking forward. The focus of this hour together is going to be looking back. And we're going to try to incorporate the body in with it. So the first thing that I'd like you to do, anyone who's attended some of these with me before, I'm quite an encourager of participation. I think that's how you get the most out of it. And so I invite you to, right now, just see if you can tune in and what comes to you when I ask you the question, what state is your body in right now? In this moment, what state is your body in? Maybe you need to take a minute. So notice the question. I'm not asking, how are you feeling? I'm not asking what emotion is present for you right now. I'm asking, what state is your body in? And maybe the words that come to you would be something like an emotion, a feeling, calm, stressed, frazzled, overwhelmed, relaxed. Maybe your body feels like in a state of tenseness. Maybe it feels in a sort of a loose state. What state is the body in? If you could also use the language of sensation, and feel free to write this in the chat as well, so that we can get a sense of, like, check the pulse of the room. Yeah, dysregulated after a week. I wonder, what does dysregulated mean? Meg, what does it feel like to feel dysregulated in terms of sensations? Yeah, some stillness, some coziness. Yeah, there's a lot of acknowledgement of, like, more than one thing being present. I'm tired, but I'm content. I'm comfy, cozy, but I'm aching. I'm relaxed, but there's also tension. Okay. So lots of different things present, which makes sense at this time of year. What we're going to do is we're going to go into a practice that is about cocooning. And it comes from, I think, it's hard to know who to credit this to exactly, but I think it comes from a discipline within somatic work called neuroaffective touch. And what this practice does really beautifully is it's based off of polyvagal theory, and this theory that our nervous system gets into all these different states, and we can work with the body to create a state of calmness and safety. Safety is the priority. But what I like about this technique is that it's not all about the nervous system, because the nervous system regulation is really trendy right now, and that's wonderful. I love to see more conversation happening about it, but we forget that as a body, we also have a heart. We also have lungs and breath, and there are all these different systems in the body right now. And actually using a little bit of touch can help to bring a sense of calmness and a sense of stillness. So cocooning is a practice. This is why I asked you to bring a blanket. If you don't have one, that's okay. You can cocoon using touch as well. But we're just going to do a practice together that really involves creating safety in the body. So this is it. This is the work. All right. This is the important part. This is how you create the space to slow down and listen to the body. So what I'm going to invite you to do is get really cozy. You've got your camera off now. So if you want to lie down, lie down. Really just check in with the body and see, like, how is it actually feeling? What does it want? Those of you who are noticing some spots of tension in the body, what would it feel like to just get into a position where you can fully loosen it? And if you haven't done so already, just take your eyes off the screen. Okay, before you close them, we're just going to do a little bit of an orienting practice. We're going to scan the eyes around the room. See if you can notice the quality of how you're taking in the room, you know. Are your eye movements, like, are you moving quite quickly? The eyes flicking around, but maybe the head is staying still. And so see if you can just move from the chin, let the eyes follow. You're just taking in the whole room. You can look all the way up. You can really feel the container. See if you can look at all four walls, even the one behind you. Look up at the roof. Look down at the ground and feel the safety container of the room. Okay. And then once you've done that, just notice what's present in the body right now. What sensation can you notice? Again, feel free to share this, write it in the chat. Maybe you want to jot it down. Maybe you just want to note it in your head. That's fine too. What is the sensation that is present? And since a few people mentioned some kind of spots of tension, I think I'm going to talk you through a bit of a practice that's going to help relieve some tension. And some of you might be familiar with this before. I've taught it in a different space. We're going to try to relieve some muscle tension. So at this point, you might feel safe enough to close the eyes. Just see if you can intuitively follow a little bit. See, okay, where are the parts of my body that are really calling for my attention right now? Where am I noticing some tension? Maybe you want to scan through the body. And what we're going to do here is just a really basic practice that comes from clinical somatic movement therapy, and it's called pandiculation. And once you understand what this feels like in kind of one area of the body, you can use it anywhere. Ideally, you do this lying down because then the body is fully surrendered to gravity. Okay, when you're sitting up, there's still an element of the body working to keep yourself upright, even if you're sitting with your back against something. So if you can lie down, lie down. But if you are just going to do it sitting, you can do it sitting. Okay, I encourage you to just close your eyes here and take away all the visual information that your brain is getting in right now, so that you can focus your attention completely on your internal body. And we're going to work first with the upper traps, or the top of the shoulders. So what I invite you to do is just bring some hand touch to that part of the body, to the upper traps. Maybe you want to touch up the neck a little bit. Now, you're not massaging, you're just touching. You can do both sides at the same time. You can alternate between the two. Just build a little bit of that awareness of these trap muscles on top of the shoulders. So they kind of connect the shoulders to the neck. So building that felt sense awareness of the traps. And then taking hands down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to count to about 8. And as I count to 8, I want you to slowly and gently raise your shoulders up towards your ears, as high as you want. So when you're ready, 1, 2, 3. And as you raise them up now, focus on the sensation of the traps contracting. Imagine them in your mind contracting. 7, 8, and then hold them there for a couple of seconds, noticing that gentle contraction. Now we're going to lower for twice as long. We're going to lower for 20. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You can relax them even more, relax them even a little bit more. Good. So releasing your muscles extremely slowly like that, resisting gravity. That's what we're doing, because gravity would just pull the shoulders straight down, right? But when we're doing it really slowly, that's what makes this so effective. Okay, and again, if you're sitting up, you're not fully resisting gravity in the same way. But now you know what that feels like. So I'm going to do it again, thinking about the traps. But if you have a particular part of the body right now where you notice tension, maybe it's something that you can adapt. So, for example, if it's like a part of the body that might be the back, like the back muscles, maybe it's sort of the mid back. And you might think, okay, what kind of a position can I get in so that those muscles are tensed and then that they can slowly be released? So maybe it's just something as simple as like arching, and you can feel those muscles on the back shorten. And then what you're going to slowly release by coming forward. Okay, but if you want, we can just stick with the shoulders. So again, touching whatever part of the body it is, just bringing some awareness to it through touch. All right, and then slowly, when you're ready, raising, contracting the muscle. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then hold for a couple of seconds. You don't have to squeeze too much, just notice the contraction. And then you know what we're doing. We're going 20 to release slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And totally relax that part of the body. And then maybe you want to bring in a little bit of a wiggle, a little bit of movement. Notice, does it feel any different? Maybe it feels the same. That's okay. It's allowed. I'm going to ask you the question again. What state is your body in right now? Again, maybe you want to share it in the chat. Maybe you just want to write it down or reflect on yourself. Just trying to build that skill of noticing what sensations are present. Maybe you feel some energy somewhere in the body. Yeah, awareness shifts. Noticing, wow, there's actually a lot of tiredness here. So the next part of the practice we're going to do before we get on to some written reflections is the cocooning. This is like a really yummy practice. It creates a sense of safety in the body. So if you have a blanket, you can use that now, and you can just get really, really comfortable. I'm going to adjust my own position a little bit. So again, if you can lie down, if you can't, if you have something that supports your back, use that. And what I want you to do is just really wrap yourself up. So it might be really taking the blanket up and around. If you don't have a blanket, you might just be wrapping up. Using your fingers, using your arms. Sorry, I've just got something stuck in my throat. So cocooning, wrapping up. Notice what happens in your body when you take this shape. Notice how your breath might change. Notice how your heart rate might change. And really bringing that principle of touch. When I'm asking you these questions, you can touch these parts of the body. Touch the chest. Feel the heart beating. One way you can, if that feels really faint and you want to connect to the heartbeat, actually, if you go in under your left breast and kind of lift it up, feel like it's a much bassier heartbeat there. Notice the difference. You might have one hand there feeling the heartbeat and the other hand wrapped around. What's the breath doing? You feel the impulse for a big sigh, for it to slow down. Where does your head want to go? If you're sitting up, can you just let the head drop and fall forward? It's not necessarily about squeezing yourself in, but if that's the natural shape that your body wants to take, then allowing for that. Maybe there's some emotions that are creeping in, letting themselves be known. Maybe some thoughts. Maybe there's a sense of urgency. Just noticing. Cocooning is about creating safety. So maybe there's just a mantra that you have. Maybe you want to connect to the fact that you're this living, breathing organism. You can feel a heart beating. You might feel the ribs expanding and contracting with the breath. Or you might feel the belly, placing the hands there. Really trying to build a relationship with your body as this living, breathing organism that it does so much more than just performs or is there for aesthetic or appearance. You're more than what your body looks like, you're more than what your body does. Often we think about the body so much in terms of fat and muscles, and we forget that it has all these other tissues and systems. That it's just running constantly. It's the natural state of the body. Renew, process. You're starting to come out of your cocoon a little bit right now with some gentle movement. Maybe you even want to just bring in some intuitive movement. But can you do that really slowly? Your internal mind is it's always trying to match the state of the external environment. So if your body moves slowly, mind's going to want to slow down. Even as you come out of this cocoon, maybe you want to stretch and twist, but can you do that really, really slowly, like almost painfully slowly? Ask yourself the question again. What state is my body in now? Just bringing awareness. You can write it in the chat, you can write it in your journal, you can just note it in your head. And it doesn't have to be more relaxed. So, before we move on to the next phase, you can stay cozy. You can grab your pen and paper if you have it handy. You might be writing on your phone or your laptop. I always like pen and paper because I think it brings in a slower, more mindful element. And just at this point, if there's anything that you feel so far you want to share, then please do so in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Maybe you just want to share something that you noticed during that. Maybe it was something about your body, maybe it was something about your mind. Maybe you found it frustrating, maybe you didn't connect to it. And if you don't want to share that with us, maybe that's just something you want to write down. And if anyone is thinking of sharing, then I'll just talk you through the next steps. So we're going to use 3 prompts to write to. And hopefully what we've done is we have created a bit of space for you to really slow down and write from the body. So anything can be made a somatic practice. Journaling, writing, reflecting, you can make that somatic if you just bring in this element of like listening to the body, noticing what state the body was in, and writing from that. So there's a lot of kind of heavy, relaxed, warm bodies. And some people may be thinking, oh, I don't want to look back. Yeah. We're going to use 3 prompts for looking back. Okay, so we're going to look at some peak experiences, things that we're proud of, maybe some challenges, some things that were hard about the year gone past. And we're going to write about some lessons learned from these things. And that's it. That's all we're going to do today. We're going to step away after that. We're going to let that integrate, let that settle. We're not going to shift straight away into setting intentions. We'll do that on the next session. So, starting, if you've got your pen and paper, I'm going to do this with you. By the way, I've got my pen and paper as well. And we're going to have about 4 minutes, 3, 4 minutes. Doesn't sound like long, but it'll feel like a long enough time to write to each prompt. And the first thing is what went well. What are you proud of? What were your wins in 2024? I want you to As you're writing these out now, you might have already started. Really take your time to pause and think like you'll just like your mind will come online and you'll be listing through things and that's great. Like let that happen, let that come out. But also think about a few things that are just like right now from my body. Like what's something I'm actually like proud of? What's it telling me? Or as I write this one particular thing, how's my body responding? As you're writing out these wins, these things that you're proud of, just making this little mental note of, okay, how many of them are related to work? How many of them are related to relationships? How many of them are related to sort of something that is just for me, that has nothing to do with my work or my family? What are you proud of? How many of these things just are things that have imprinted on you, the things that are kind of core memories, things that maybe you didn't actually set out to achieve in 2024, but they just happened. What are you proud of? Just a couple more minutes of that. Maybe this is happening for you in kind of more of a bullet point list, or maybe there are some points that you feel like you're expanding and free writing on a little bit more. Get you to start to wrap up on that now. And again, read it back. Reflect on whether that was easy for you to answer. Maybe it was quite difficult for you. Maybe there are some things in there that surprise you. Maybe as I gave you some of those prompts, things came to mind that you hadn't first considered, things that were totally unexpected. Maybe take a note, like I said before, of okay, if I had to categorize these, like how many of them fit into work, personal self-development, health, relationships. The list leaning more heavily in one direction. Just notice that. And then if you would like, always an invitation, you might share one of the wins or one of the little things that you're proud of. I'll go first. Something that I think was a win and that I'm quite proud of myself is that I was able to really practice listening to my body when my body was telling me things that I didn't want to hear. You know, we came to the end of the winter and I had a lot of some old chronic pain come up, some stiffness and some illness and some soreness and just a lot of unpleasantness in my experience of being in my body. And it took a while. It was a challenge. It was a month or so of resistance at first, but then after that, it was like a settling in. Boundaries. It's a big win. Yeah, and sitting in the difficult moments. It's another big win. Okay. Well done. The next one is going to be hard. The challenge list. So, what was hard about the year? When you look back on 2024, I'll just put it in writing in the chat. What did you find tough? What stands out? Taking a couple of minutes again, the same prompts, and really see how does your body respond to this. You might have reflecting on the challenges. You might be having a different experience of being in your body right now. I would say that share of being proud. I'll come back to that in a minute. Sarah, just giving everyone a couple minutes. What was hard? Taking a moment. Again, notice how have you written the response to this? Now, I haven't given much of a cue, I've just given a question prompt. Have you responded in bullet points? Are you trying to come up with, let me list out all the challenges? Or have you just kind of written down a couple of core challenges? Have you expanded on them in your writing? Are you almost trying to write them out and explain them and analyze them? There's no right or wrong way to do this, by the way. It's just being aware of how you're responding to these prompts and then being aware of how your body's responding right now. That was quite a different experience to write the challenges versus the wins, the prides. And some people might be having this experience of, oh, there's not a lot to be proud of, and there was a lot of challenges. It's okay. We all have tough years. So no need to beat yourself up for not being able to think of many wins. The getting through emergency surgery and recovering from that sounds like a big enough win for the whole year. Why do you need multiple wins? Why do you need multiple challenges? What's the right number of wins and the right number of challenges? And then again, an invitation if you would like, you might want to share just one challenge that you had this year. The challenge might also be the win. You know, some people's wins are around boundaries and staying in relationships, and like the challenge might have been those things as well. Absolutely allowed to have overlap in these answers. If you want to share, you can do so. But I know this is a harder one. This one feels more vulnerable. So there's no expectation to share. Yeah, grief. Grief is always a tough one. Grief. I was talking to a friend about that today, actually, and she reminded me of that quote. I don't know who it's from, but that grief is the tax that you pay on love. Yeah. Not being able to find your place, being able to figure out what it is that you want, what is staying true to you. There's a lot of experiences of duality here. Like, I want to be healthful and nourish my body, and then I also want to reject diet culture. And you're allowed to want both things. You're allowed to want two things that really come into conflict. I think in psychology that's called like dialectic thinking. It's like two opposing truths can be true. Mhm. Okay. Final question. I purposefully am keeping this really simple. Wins, challenges, lessons. That's it. So this one, I want you to rather than well, you can answer it however you like. If it helps you to start with a brain dump and a bullet point list, go for it. But just putting it in the chat now. What did you learn? And if you are stumped for what to write here, then have a look at the wins and the challenges that you've written and see if you can condense a lesson out of those. And it doesn't matter if it feels repetitive. There's a sense of repetition there that must mean that something keeps coming up for you. You can choose to listen to that. So the lesson, the lessons. Just taking a couple of minutes. And don't forget what's happening in your body as you're writing this. How is this experience happening for you? Are you finding that you're getting into this flow state with writing? If so, fantastic. Follow that. Ignore me, keep going. Is there stuckness in this? Is it a struggle for you? What's the lesson? So just before I bring this session to a close, maybe somebody wants to share a lesson. I think a big lesson for me this year has been that accepting the different parts of myself and allowing them to coexist and allowing conflicting desires to coexist. Yeah, that rest is needed. Yeah, it's trusting. It's like following the rhythm and the cycle. You look to the wisdom of nature. You look at a field. The field needs this fallow period. You need that rest because that's what fertilizes the ground for what's to come. And when you take that rest, then you can take the action. Yeah, but we are resilient. But that resilience is a skill. It's like something that we need to protect and foster. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of end things there. And that might feel like a little bit of a cliffhanger ending, and that's kind of on purpose. So if these prompts have just kind of gotten the ball rolling and you want to keep writing, then we end the call and keep writing. But as much as possible, I really want you to resist the urge to go into like planning and goal setting. I'd love for you to just stay in reflection, stay in looking back, and then step away. Okay, if you feel like I'm following this momentum into planning mode, like cut yourself off there, stop there. Allow it some time to integrate. Let it settle in. Even just to come back to this, what you've written in a day or two, and you might just have more now that you've got these reflections on your mind, more things might come up in the next couple of days. So just let them. We don't have to have the goals perfectly set before clock strikes midnight on the 31st. New Year is a lovely time to have a ritual around looking back and looking forward, but it is just another day. So thank you, everyone, for joining, for carving out the time. Keep noticing that state that the body's in, that what it needs. The tension. Does it need some softening? Maybe the body needs a bit of energy, a bit of movement. Maybe it's feeling like flat and lethargic. And I will hopefully see you all again on the 6th. I'll send you out an email with details for that. Enjoy your evening. And if you celebrate the new year, then Happy New Year. And I hope you're having a lovely, slow, restful period over Christmas. I'll see you soon. Ciao.